Welcome to another week of the Beacon Hill Podcast. Here with Jake, and Joel's going to be joining us in just a second. How's your week been so far, Jake?
It's been okay.
It's good.
It's been pretty good.
We're not going to talk about basketball or anything like that.
I tell you what,
Don't do it.
there's one team that's looking real good, but I don't know.
Blue team?
They were blue, yeah.
Okay. We'll just leave it at that.
Yep.
But we're talking about servants this week.
Yeah.
And here's what I was thinking for both of you guys. I was thinking on this episode at the beginning, I could serve you and Joel.
Uh-huh.
Get serve you all some food.
Uh-huh.
We had talked last week about a little dish that I like that Joel made fun of me for, pickled bologna. And we're going to do a little taste test. And I've got it prepared here.
Yep.
If you're watching, you might be seeing it laying in the corner here. Joel, you want to come over here and just join us? He's sitting over there on the screens. Make sure we got the center camera
Me
going.
and Joel are so scared.
That's just, that's half of this job. You never know what you're going to get.
Never know.
All right, so what we have here.
Watermelon and mustard was pretty good.
It's been a while,
I liked
though.
it.
That's been a while. I bet that's been almost a year
I
ago.
don't think Joel liked it, though.
Yeah, welcome, Joel. This is the first time we've sat three at this table, I think.
Hey, Joel.
We're going to just swing that mic around a little bit. So here's the deal. We've got the pickled bologna. I already cut it up for you and everything. I've got a little cheese, a little cracker. But I think to really get the first experience, you just need the bologna by itself. Because the cheese and the cracker really accent it, give it a little bit of a different flavor.
Right. Cover up.
Now, I'm looking here. Neither of y'all have anything to drink.
Nope.
So, I mean, you're committed at this point. You're going to have the flavor in your mouth
For the
for a
next
while.
40 minutes.
If you all have never had this, you can get it at Walmart. That's where I get it. But I found that, where was it? In South Carolina, when I lived there, they didn't even know this was a thing. So I learned while I was in South Carolina, this is a northern thing that has migrated south some.
Uh-huh.
And this is about as far south as it goes, I think.
Let me just clarify. For me, I can't speak for Joel. I've seen that in the grocery store, and
Yeah.
I've purposefully never bought it.
Yeah.
It's not because I didn't know it existed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, they've got different things,
I'm
eggs,
just
bologna,
I'll pass on
pig's
that.
feet,
Yeah.
all of that. I don't go into I stay in the bologna territory.
That whole section is wild. You
Yeah.
can find anything in
All
there.
right. So you all both like bologna. You all both like vinegar. So it's like just merging two things that you already like.
Yeah. You sound
So-
like my wife trying to convince me that green bean casserole is good.
Yeah. Well,
you like green beans,
all right. So here's what we're going to do. You might push your mic away so people don't have to hear you chewing, Jake. And then we'll let them taste it, and then we'll give some comments, a little reaction. I've cut this up into slices. If you're listening, you don't know that, but it's basically like chopped up, oversized hot dogs. That's what it looks like if you're not watching. So go ahead, Joel. Let's do this at the same time. Oh, he went for a big one. Jake went for a little one. All right, here we go. Let's see what happens. Look this way a little bit, Jake, so we can capture your reaction. Now I'm gonna go for one too. You all making me hungry here. Joel, you took half a bite. Jake committed.
I had a bigger piece than Jake.
Okay. Go ahead and give your reaction, Jake.
First of all, you can really taste the vinegar.
Yeah, it's very polarizing.
It's very vinegary.
Mm-hmm. Joel went for the cheese. I think he's having a hard time.
It's not bad, right?
Yeah.
Like if I was starving and needed food, I would eat that and be just fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
if I'm shopping, am I gonna grab a? Because those containers have like 1,000 of them in there, right?
No, I mean, I think there's usually about 9 or so.
9 or yeah,
Yeah.
might as well be 1,000.
But you can get some that are like the big rope that's just like
Right.
swirled
Yeah,
around
yeah.
that you chop off
Right.
however much you want to eat.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna, you know what I mean. Like
I know
I'm not
what
gonna serve that
yeah.
at my house.
Yeah,
But if somebody was like, "Hey,
you would eat it to be
I'm
polite.
really proud of this. I've got this whole taste test menu," like you were excited about this. Like I'll eat it
Okay.
and be, to
So
be polite.
let's get Joel's reaction here. You'll have to swing the mic around to him.
It's not good. It's like heavy on the vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
And if I want, to kind of scratch that itch, I'm going to go more for like a salt and vinegar chip or
I don't think so.
like
I mean, I would
maybe
go for that
some
too,
malt
but-
vinegar and dip some like fries or something in that.
Okay.
But this is like, what if I took a Lunchable and like not the main brand Lunchable, but like the off-brand Lunchable, and then I took a bottle of vinegar and just poured it on that Lunchable, maybe left it at room temperature
Okay.
for an hour or two, and then came back and ate some.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now we've got to go a little bit deeper and do the cracker cheese and bologna at the same time. Now, I'll say this. I like this better than just the bologna. The bologna is I'll agree, is pretty harsh on the vinegar. This takes the edge off. So now we got to go into that territory and see if you all change your mind.
All right.
This makes it seem like you're not eating the bologna. It covers up the
No,
bologna.
I mean, it just adds a little
Right.
dimension to it.
Right.
It. So here's what I like to do. I put the bologna on the cracker and then the cheese on top.
The other thing I'll say for it, and I don't know if this is good or bad, but it smells strong. You know
It
what
smells
I mean?
like it tastes.
Yeah, like if you
You know what you're gonna get.
if you walk into a house that has this in it,
Yeah.
and it's served on the table,
You're gonna know before you get to the table.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So let's try a little cheese and cracker. You are a little slow to dig in.
Do we just
Here's your yeah, you can try that side of it. I'm gonna push my mic back.
I'm gonna tell you what, I'm gonna eat a whole piece again. Just to get the
You're gonna see what I'm talking about. Now you guys are gonna see what I'm talking about on that. It's a different dimension. Probably should have had a drink.
that's a much more enjoyable experience.
All right, so tell me about that.
So, Monica's family, anytime there's a holiday or whatever, they've got like summer sausage, cheese, crackers. Like that's like the main. Everybody's just
Right.
whatever. If that was there and I ate that,
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, that's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
So it's a different thing. All
It's
right, let's go
different.
with
It's
Joel. Let's see
definitely
if he's changed his mind.
So the dimension that I enjoyed about that is first, I got a taste of cracker, and that was salty and good.
Uh-huh.
Then an overwhelming taste of vinegar. It's still there. And then I got some cheese, which was good, and more cracker because I did a little sandwich. So probably in order of the things I liked: cracker, cheese, then at the bottom
Uh-huh.
was the bologna.
So if you remove the bologna though, Is it a better experience or a worse experience?
Yeah, let's.
Jake's just going in for the cheese and cracker. So that's the real deal. Which I already know. I like it better with the bologna. I'll make a plate like this if I'm just looking for a quick snack. I'll make a plate like this, sit in front of the TV.
That's the one.
What? Without the bologna? Come on, man.
Although I will say, when you have the vinegar with the cracker, it's almost like you're eating a salt and vinegar chip.
I would probably recommend trying it like I did the first time, and then having the cheese and cracker after, and it really makes you appreciate how good the cheese and cracker is versus how hard things could get. You know what I mean? It's like after you rough it outside for a while and
Yeah.
you come back into the AC or something, like you really begin to appreciate what you have.
Yeah. Well, at the very least today, you all have learned to appreciate cheese and crackers. And you've learned something that, if you're in a tight spot and you need to eat something, that's always there. If
like
it's
if
so-
I was in college or something and I was
Mhm.
like, I got $5, I'd eat. I'd
well, the
buy a
thing's
thing of that.
it's
and-
like 7 though.
oh well, never
But
mind.
here's the thing.
Ramen noodles.
Here's the thing. If it's like apocalypse,
Yeah.
right? Now we're not talking about end of the world, Jesus is coming back. We're just talking about the zombies hit or whatever.
Right.
And the grocery store is cleaned out, but everybody's listened to this podcast and they're like, "Oh, I need to stay away from that stuff."
Mm-hmm.
You go in and that stuff is still on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've still got at least something you can go to because you're like, "Hey, it wasn't my favorite, but I could eat it."
Yeah, I'd make it. I'd survive.
Okay. Appreciate it, Joel. Thanks for
Joel.
joining us for this little taste test.
I think we're 0 for 2 on Joel
What?
because he didn't like.
Oh, he didn't like
the
the mustard and
mustard
watermelon.
and watermelon. So
So I brought the taste test the last couple times. Maybe you all need to bring a little flavor. What's something that you all like that maybe not a lot of people like? Is there anything? So let me ask you this: do you all like sauerkraut? Have you ever had it?
it's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
This is a similar experience to me as sauerkraut.
Mm-hmm.
Have you all ever tried durian before?
No, but I've heard of it.
Man, if I could get
Have you tried it?
uh-huh.
What is it?
It's like some kind of stinky fruit that would probably stink up
Oh,
this whole.
don't start after what you just did. He talks about the smell,
How
but it's
dare
a
you.
good
But
smell.
here's the thing though. Once you eat it, you can't smell it anymore. You know.
That's not the case.
I think you're still having a hard time over there.
I'm struggling.
Well, here's more right here if you want it. What should I do with this? Just leave it here?
You can leave it. Yeah.
Okay. We'll
I
leave
mean,
it.
once you eat it, it's
Yeah.
like you don't really smell it much
Yeah.
anymore. you
Well,
know?
it's probably a good thing that Joel didn't have to sit over here after that.
Yeah.
That you're the one to do that.
I'm trying to think. I bet there's like, I need to think of like some kind of Cajun thing that,
Yeah,
that
well,
I eat that y'all need to try or something.
but not like heat is one of those things that's like either you like it or you don't.
Yeah.
And I feel like Cajun can have a lot of heat. But Joel and I both like heat, but not like crazy. Do you do a lot of heat in your food? A little spice?
Yeah, we like
Okay.
a little hot sauce.
Okay. Well, you all think
Nothing
about
crazy.
it. Maybe we can try something in the future. Probably not the most entertaining thing we've done or talked about on here, but
I bet somebody will bring you some of that on Sunday.
maybe so. Joel did say that he wanted to try they're called Red Hots. It's basically like this, but the spicy version.
Oh yeah.
Now you can imagine, Joel, if you added some spice to this, the flavors that are going on in your mouth at that time. I mean, it's a lot.
An
And
explosion
yeah, I mean, you could
of
imagine.
flavor.
So I think Joel wants to try some of those if somebody wants to bring him some.
So there's a spicy, like an already bottled spicy
they're
version.
called Red Hots, but they're smaller,
Uh-huh.
and these have a little like pop to the texture, whatever. Like the sausagey,
Mm-hmm.
the Red Hots aren't really like that. They're a
just-
little bit more.
They're
So
just mushy.
best way to describe it is these are more like hot dogs. Those are more like Vienna sausages.
Okay.
If you've ever had a Vienna sausage, like that texture.
I do not like Vienna sausages.
Yeah. But I mean, the flavor
Right.
is like this,
Right.
but the texture is like Vienna sausage.
yeah. Gotcha. I got you.
So
Best
now
of
you know.
both worlds.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Maybe in the post edit of this, we should put like, if you're not interested in this, fast forward to this part.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to let people know.
Actual Bible discussion
Yeah.
starts. At,
Yeah. Anyway, well, I'm glad I got to serve you all today. We're talking about which servant are you. We're looking at Luke 12. We actually started in verse 35, but most of our time Sunday began at verse 41 because Jesus in 35 is talking about his return and basically how we're to be ready, to be watchful, and all of those kind of things. And the way that we are to be ready and be watchful is being prepared by being faithful stewards or servants of what the Lord has given us. And so Peter in verse 41 of Luke 12 says, "Are you telling this parable to us or everyone?" And to answer his question, Jesus begins into another parable and lists 4 different types of servants. And in this, he's wanting us to ask ourselves, which one of these are we? And of these 4, I labeled them, and I want to just quickly go through this. The faithful servant is, it says, verse 43, "Blessed is that servant whom the master finds doing his job when he comes. And truly I tell you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions." So this one is faithful. He's obedient, doing the things that the Lord, for the parable's sake, the master has told him to do. Then next I labeled this one the hypocritical servant. Now I do want to go a little bit more in depth into this and make sure that everybody knows kind of what I'm talking about here. So this servant really is making himself the master. The master's gone away, and this servant decides, hey, the master's gone. He's not coming back for a while, and I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And I talked about how this servant is reflective of that person who has not really submitted their heart to the Lord. They're just living for themselves, making themselves their own master. And with that, I don't know if I made it clear Sunday, but I want to make it clear here just in case I didn't. I don't believe that when we look at this in light of the kingdom, eternity, all of those things, I don't believe that this person could be classified as a quote-unquote believer. This is an unbeliever. This is somebody who has not, in their heart, they've not submitted themselves to the Lord. They might look the part. They might claim the name of servant, of a Christian, those kind of things. But they have not really made the Lord their master. They're still living as their own master. And so because of that, they aren't saved. And so that's kind of how I view this. The question may come like, well, why are they called hypocrites? Like, why did you call them a hypocritical servant? We all know that there are people like in churches, even ourselves, I think we could say there are times in our lives that we look at and say, man, we're kind of hypocritical in some of the stuff we say and do and think. We can be hypocritical. And so I do think there are believers who can be hypocritical. But what I mean by this is if you remember kind of at the end of Luke 11, Jesus has called out the Pharisees and called them hypocrites. In other words, the thing that's on the outside doesn't match what's going on the inside, that they are all about appearance. They are all about just kind of looking like they're holy and all of this, but on the inside, Jesus describes them as being completely dead. That is the type of hypocrite that I'm talking about here. Somebody who on the outside, they look like they've got it all together, but in their heart and overflowing maybe in their actions when they think no one's looking, because again, here the master was away. when they think nobody's looking, they just live for themselves. And so with that, again, this is somebody who is hypocritical, and ultimately they're not saved. And then a couple of other things that I wanted to add here. The third one was the negligent servant. This one knows what to do, and he just doesn't do it. And I found this very difficult to kind of differentiate from the other. And I don't know if you thought through this a little bit, like when we were talking about it on Sunday, but for me, it was hard to differentiate because it's like, okay, here's a person with the hypocritical servant who knows what to do and is actively doing something else, and they're not saved, theoretically. Then you've got this person who knows what to do, but they're not doing anything. Isn't that just another form of disobedience? And isn't that just another form of kind of living for yourself or whatever? And that was the hard part for me to fully say, well, how could this person be labeled as unfaithful or as an unbeliever kind of in this group? But in this one, it says instead of being cut apart, you're going to be severely beaten, and the outcome is different. And that is some of the reason why this passage is so difficult to understand. If you read a lot of commentaries, if you read a lot of study Bibles and things, you're going to either find differences in opinion, or you're going to find that they don't even give an opinion because, like, it's hard to land somewhere on this. Mm-hmm. But again, I think with this, you look at this in light of 1 Corinthians 3. I mentioned at the end of everything, like what we've done for the Lord versus not. What we haven't done for the Lord is going to burn up, and we're going to have nothing to show for it. And the things we have done for the Lord, those are the things that are really going to last. And so while this servant, I think the difference comes in actively opposing the kingdom versus like passively or just idly sitting by. Mm-hmm. I gave an illustration Sunday about when I worked at the gas station. Imagine if the boss showed up and I was just pretending that I was the boss and I was repricing everything, reorganizing the whole store, and just kind of running it as if it were mine. That would not fly. You know, he'd be like, okay, you get out of here and never show your face here again. Mm-hmm. Versus he shows up and maybe I'm just like sitting idly by, you know, looking on my phone or whatever, you know, talking to somebody instead of working. Mm-hmm. That's going to have a harsh, like an outcome, but probably like not to the effect of the other, because the other, I was actively opposing him versus sitting idly by. To me, that's like a good illustration to kind of help understand that a little bit. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's crystal clear. Before we get too farther into this, any thoughts from you on those things, or comments, questions, whatever? I've talked for a little while.
Well, I mean, the thing that I, like the example that I could think of would be like if you told your kids, like, hey, I want you to, we're going to do something when I get home. By the time we get home, I want the dishes done or whatever. And like, it's very different to come home and like have James like playing Xbox and the dishes are still dirty versus him like taking the dishes and smashing them on the floor.
Right.
Or something, because he doesn't like the fact that I told him to do something, or, you know. And I feel like the context of that hypocritical servant is that not only does he know what the master normally does and wants to do, and he doesn't do it, but he also does other things that he wants to do that the master never would do.
Yeah, it's like a defiance or opposite. It's like, not only are you not doing the things that he told you to do, but you're actively doing the opposite.
Yeah, it's like, I know I can do it better than he does, and I know, yeah.
Yeah, and so we have to be careful, I think, in some ways when we get to parables. You don't want to overanalyze them and impart meanings that Jesus never meant for us to put into them. Like, for instance, you know, doing that with this would be like, you know, giving them their food and the basically beating the male and female servants and drinking and getting drunk, all this, and saying, well, what does the alcohol represent here? Or what does the food represent? You know, to me, that's like doing too much with this.
Right.
But I do think the purpose is to figure out which servant you are. And so I do think we have to understand the differences between these. The last one I called the uninformed servant, and it says the one who didn't know and did what deserved punishment will receive a light beating. And so this is one that is just like someone who has limited knowledge of what Jesus wants them to do. Maybe they're a new believer or, you know, whatever the case may be. They're still accountable, but we see that in the end of things that their accountability is lessened as compared to those who know a lot. And we know this is true because if you look at, I believe it's James that talks about, like, not many should become teachers because you're held to a higher standard at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so that we know that's true as far as that outcome. So that being said, even though the outcome is lessened for them, you know, a light beating versus a severe beating, I don't know about you, but any type of beating, in my opinion, is a bad deal. You know, like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want it.
Yeah.
And so we know that the punishment here is still not going to be fun, if you will. So obviously the purpose is for us to be like that faithful, obedient servant that we see in the very beginning. So in thinking about that, the faithful servant, it says that he's doing his job. Let's think about that just for a second as far as our context. What does it mean, like, to be doing our job as Christians? You know, I think some people boil it down to, well, and we talk against this often about, like, having a checklist of things, almost like a parent giving their kids chores and saying, here are your chores for the day, go through and check them off and make sure you're doing this. I do think there are certain things as Christians that we are, like, obviously commanded to do and need to do out of pure obedience. But what is it even more broadly than that? What are your thoughts on what it looks like to do your job as a Christian and to be faithful in that?
Yeah, I think, like you said, you know, sometimes it's not a good thing to just boil it down to a checklist, but that checklist is kind of part of what God asks you to do. Like, in order to know him better and to know his will and what you should do in your life, you have to be reading his word. You have to be in prayer. All these things that you need to be in church and fellowshipping with other believers and all these things that we talk about. But the heart has to be there and have a desire to grow closer to the Lord and to do the things that he wants you to do as his servant. I think that, you know, the faithful servant would be one that is doing those things without ulterior motive, you know, without it being like a required thing that they don't really want to do, but they're going to do it anyway because they know that maybe later they're going to get credit with the Lord, or, you know, one that is actively looking for ways to serve others instead of having it always be something that is kind of begrudgingly done because they think that it's the right thing to do, but it's not done with joy in their heart, with a desire to help others. And so I think it's mostly doing those things that we know we should do, but doing them with a desire to know God better and to be obedient to him, and with a cheerful and generous heart, I think, is kind of the difference there.
Did you lose your voice there?
I don't know.
You started, like, tapering off there at the end, man. Is it the pickle blonde?
That vinegar is like sucking the moisture out of.
How are you doing over there, Joel? Have you recovered yet?
I don't think I'll ever be the same.
Okay. Well,
like
it's
what-
life changing.
When you
Yeah.
eat those vinegar chips, like,
Yeah.
it's like just the moisture's gone from
Well, yeah. It not only will you appreciate cheese and crackers more, you're going to appreciate a
it.
drink.
Water,
a
everything.
drink more. Yeah.
Life's
Uh-huh.
going to be richer.
Yeah. I think when you think about the idea of, like, just doing your job, it's, you know, we have this list of things that we know that we're supposed to do as a Christian, but kind of like what you said, I think some of it is linked into not just doing what we're supposed to be doing, but our attitudes toward doing those things as well. I'll give you an example. Like, if you go to a restaurant or something like that, and you've got a server at a restaurant, There's a big difference, like for somebody who enjoys their job and is trying to like really do it well and have a good attitude about it versus somebody who's just there, like they might bring you your food or take your order or whatever, but their attitude, you can tell that they'd rather be working somewhere
Right.
else or doing something else.
It's like technically the same job got done, but way different results.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it is that. Now I'll say, I think that kind of ebbs and flows in our lives at different times. Like maybe there are some times where we go to church out of, that we just feel obligated to do it or whatever, versus like really feel joyful in it. And let me just say, like, I don't think we should only go to church when we feel like going to church.
Mhm.
I don't think we should only read our Bible when we feel like reading our Bible. Sometimes, and that's why we call it spiritual discipline. Sometimes we just have to do it because we know it's good for us. It's just like drinking water or something like that. Like, there are times like you right now, you'd love to have a drink of water, and you're like, man, that would just help me out.
I'm
And
seeing like behind you, I see the Coke can, and
oh yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
oh man, a nice Coke.
And then there are times that you're like, well, I know I don't really want water right now, but I know I need to be drinking it. And you're just making yourself do it because you know it's good for you. And I think being faithful is staying steadfast regardless of how we feel. However, if I do think those who are faithful and truly committed to the Lord are going to have that right spirit primarily in their lives, because they're close to the Lord.
I was going to say that example of the waiter. It's like there are going to be days where that waiter is having a bad day and doesn't really feel like being at the end. And so, yeah, I think, like you said, it's just the majority, the general way that you are is.
Yeah. So, and thinking about the hypocritical servant now, again, this is one, a servant that is obviously going against his master. I'll read what it says. It says, verse 45, if that servant says in his heart, my master's delaying his coming, and starts to beat the male and female servants and to eat and drink and get drunk, that servant's master will come on a day he doesn't expect him, and at an hour he doesn't know. He'll cut him into pieces and assign him to a place with the unfaithful. Again, especially that last part, that is what makes a lot of people believe this is talking about like someone who's not truly a believer, someone who's just around the things of the Lord, just physically, or like they're just there. They're not actually, maybe they know some stuff, but they're not putting it into practice. They haven't submitted their lives to the Lord. And not only that, they are actively working against. It's like if you have somebody in the church who are using maybe a leadership or authority in the church for their own benefit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what example that would be, but let's say that somebody in business, for example, in the community, goes to church just to help drum up business at their place.
Right.
And they're using that maybe position of leadership or whatever. They're not really into it as far as with their heart for the Lord. They're using it for personal gain and maybe trying to manipulate people or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
This is that type of thing. And so this person in public, they look one way, but in private or in their hearts, they look a different way. And so in thinking about that, like, how do we make sure that we are keeping our public and private lives the same, so that we can like identify that in our lives if that's hypocritical? Like, what are some signs or what are some things that somebody should be looking for in their life? We come back to, and I'll just kind of start with my thoughts on this. We come back to this idea that it's about the heart. And so I do think we have to often examine our hearts. And I think it's good to examine our hearts regularly. 1 John talks about that. Other places talk about that, especially for areas that we need to repent, to make sure our lives are on the track that God wants us to be on. I think there are a lot of people who fool themselves and believe that they're going to heaven because at one time they felt like they were committed to the Lord for, let's say, 6 months to a year or whatever. And since then, like, they've been their own master and they don't really care about the things of God.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not their judge. The Lord is. But for all of us, the Bible says for us to examine our own hearts. So I think that's one of the things we have to actively do. And so when you're talking about church attendance, Bible reading, whatever, we have to ask ourselves a few things. Like, one, why are we doing this? What's our goal in doing it? Are we doing this just for what we benefit out of it, in that, like, it makes me feel good when I go to church and I'm just around people and they're uplifting me and I'm just doing it because I want to feel good? Or I just read the parts of the Bible that make me feel good or that agree with what I want to do anyway, and I'm using that to basically make it seem like that I'm following God, but I'm really my own master, and I'm just trying to, appear like I'm doing, the Lord's work. I'm just thinking out loud here. What are your thoughts on this? Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, we talked about, like, your behavior matching at home versus church and all those things. And I think a lot of times we just kind of go about our lives and do things without really thinking about what we do very often. I think it's really easy to just kind of float along, even as Christians, and just kind of be like, yeah, I think, I'm doing pretty well. I think it's all right. But like, we have to actively look at what we're doing and decide, like, is this something that if the majority of my church knew that I was doing or involved in, would that be something that would be looked at as a godly thing or as an okay thing for Christians to do? And a lot of times it comes down to the things that we watch and even like the types of, if we like I like comedy a lot, and it's easy for me to sometimes slip into laughing at things that maybe I shouldn't laugh at because it's not, godly things. And so it's just having to take a look at yourself and what you're doing and just decide, like, hey, taking out personal opinion as far as, like, whatever it is, some people are going to like it, some people won't. But would the general consensus be that this is something that is okay that a Christian does and that would represent Christ versus what the world looks like?
And I think with what you just said, part of our evaluation has to be, like, when you say general consensus, it's not like, I'll give you an example. There's a very high statistic out there that says, and we talked about this back in October when we did our This Is War event surrounding pornography and things, that a very high percentage of people, including Christians, they're either involved in that or look at that. I don't know exactly what, and I don't want to make up a statistic, but at the very least, we could say that that's a weakness for people. Mm-hmm. I don't think when you're talking about a consensus that we need to say, well, I am this type of servant, like I'm a faithful servant and not a whatever type of servant because, I do that all the time and I'm embracing that, but everybody else is doing it too.
Right.
And I think that's a thing that we can get into this way of thinking of, like, well, if everybody struggles with it, then it's okay for me to do it, or right, it excuses this in my life. And that's not the type of thinking that we need to do.
Yeah, I think...
and I don't think that's what you meant by that, but I just wanted to make that clear.
No, but I think a better way of saying what I was thinking is, like, if those things were brought to light, mm-hmm, and if it was something where, people who you trust in your life to be godly influence, would you be okay with telling them, like, hey, this is something I'm involved in. I like this. I like watching this. I like doing this. Would that be something that a mature believer who is in touch with what the Word of God says, is that something that you think would be okay? Plus, like, ideally reading yourself in God's Word to find out. But I think sometimes we can be involved in things, or we can go so long without examining what we're doing that when people who know what the godly thing is and who are, people that God has placed in our life to be good influence, when they confront us with that type of thing, we can be very defensive of it because we haven't taken the time to actually know whether or not it's godly.
Yeah. And I think we have to examine ourselves and ask why we do what we do. I think it's one of those things, whether it's local or state or national politics. I'll give it another example. There are times that when somebody's, for example, like running for office, and they're like, oh, it would probably be helpful to me to show up at a church and to try to get some votes or whatever by doing this because I'm running and that kind of thing. But outside of that time, like, I'm never going to darken the door of a church. And so it becomes very evident in those ways that people are doing that. That being said, maybe the bigger danger are the ones that it's not so evident, that maybe they're there every week, but it's really for selfish motives. And that's the thing for us that we have to ask ourselves, like, why are we here? Why are we going to church? And just to make sure that we're doing the things that we're called to do and have actually submitted our hearts to the Lord. Again, I think this idea of the hypocritical versus the negligent servant, there are some overlaps with this, and so it gets a little bit difficult to interpret and to apply separately. But I do think that it's worth considering. One of the things that we mentioned, and we'll just kind of move quickly here into the negligent servant, is this idea of laziness. The passage here says, the servant who knew his master's will and didn't prepare himself or do it will be severely beaten. Somebody who knows what to do, and just for whatever reason, they're lazy, they're negligent. How do we keep ourselves from getting into this territory of the laziness and negligence when it comes to doing the things of the Lord? I heard somebody say one time, I've heard this multiple times, but in particular, I'm thinking about a sermon I heard at one time that was talking about how there's really, from work for the Lord, doing things for the Lord, there's no retirement in that. There's no retirement age from serving the Lord. And that's not necessarily talking about like being a deacon or being a Sunday school leader or whatever you are. But it is talking about, in general, working and serving the Lord. There's no retirement age. Like, we should always be doing that. And so we have to watch out for that laziness. And I mentioned recently, this idea of giving instead of putting in time. Joel and I talked about that last week, giving money and holding on to our time and being selfish with it, and vice versa, giving of our time but being selfish and greedy with our money. I think when you talk about time and gifts and talents and all these things that God's given us, the laziness really starts to creep in. And here's the biggest issue. And this is the reason why we see other parables that address this, is because God has given us our talents and our abilities not to just like give us an enjoyable life or for us to be able to do these things to get a job to make money or whatever it is. He ultimately gives us everything to grow his kingdom. And if we don't put these things to use, then that doesn't happen. And again, these aren't ours to begin with. They're God's. He's given us everything to steward. And so on the flip side, though, when we put them to use for the Lord, what happens with that is like, the analogy of planting seeds and it sprouting up and producing fruit. There's going to be so much more that comes from that when we use that for the kingdom of God versus just using it for ourselves. We think about for ourselves, well, I'm going to go to work and make this paycheck, and hopefully, one day I can retire and have this nice retirement for me and my spouse, and then maybe we'll have something to leave our kids. But you think about investing your time and all this as much as possible into the kingdom, and how many more people that affects, but not only for the here and now, but affects in eternity. And that was the thing that really stood out to me about this passage is the faithful servant, the one that had done well, gets assigned more things. And we were talking about, like, when we get those more greater responsibilities in eternity, that's going to be like forever that we get to be in charge of things. And so that's the thing, is like what we're doing on the here and now is the test, if you will, for how things are going to be for us, or should be for us in eternity. So how do we watch out for that laziness? What are your thoughts on that briefly, and then we'll move into this last one.
Yeah, I think that I think this is one that probably more people would struggle with than the others. I know for me, it is that way. There's a lot of times where, like, when we have opportunities to serve or do things, where the first thing that enters my mind is like all the stuff that I've already got going on, and it's like, well, if I do that, then that's like taking up my only free day, or whatever. Or like sometimes we can just be like, if I know God wants me to do this, but if I sign up to do it, or if I decide to do it, then I'm in. And if I want to do something else, I can't really get out of it. And like, we're constantly just thinking of like the ways and the reasons why we should not do it, or that we could get out of it if we do. And I feel like, like we said, we need to embrace that serving the Lord, being obedient to Him, is something that's going to be ultimately good for us as well. And I know that, like, if you read about like our biology and our brain, like so much more dopamine is released for that like good feeling when we do things for others than when we're doing things for ourselves. And so it's like built into who we are, that helping people and doing things for others is going to be good for us ultimately.
It's like when I served you all the pickled bologna.
Oh gosh, you must
I
have been.
I felt great about that.
Like, golly, they're gonna, and then we just dumped all over him. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I think, like, we need to try to fight those voices in our head that are saying, like, if this is going to be a lot, or, what if we're not good enough to do it, or, all these things, and just trust that what we feel like God is leading us to do, He's going to help us with, and He's going to work through us.
So the last one that was mentioned here is the uninformed servant. This is one that, somebody who has limited knowledge of what the Lord has asked him to do. But even still, we know that that person is still accountable in some ways, just maybe not as much accountability as someone who did know, but still, we are called to learn and grow and to get better. I think a good analogy for this would be, I remember when I was a kid, I don't remember exactly where we were going, but we were on vacation, and my dad got pulled over because he had gone too fast in a school zone. And we were in a community that we didn't even know, and I guess he didn't see the sign or something and got pulled over for that. And he told the officer, like, hey, I didn't realize this was a school zone. We're not from around here, that kind of thing. And so I think at that time, if I remember correctly, he just kind of like let him off with a warning and told him that, to watch out. Now, imagine, though, that maybe on the way back, he blasts through there again and the same officer pulls him over. He's probably not going to let him off as easy this next time, because the first time he didn't know. Even still, he should have got pulled over the first time, because there should have been some accountability. But now there's going to be more accountability because he did know. And I think this same situation is kind of like that. It's not like when we stand before the Lord, or even now, that we're just, if we don't know, that God's just, oh, you didn't know, I'm going to give you a pass or whatever. Because we see that everybody's accountable. Romans 1 says that because God's law is, and 1 and 2 kind of talks about this in Romans, because God's law is written on our hearts, like there's nobody who's without an excuse. All of us are accountable for our sins. And so because of that, the wages of sin is death, and we don't have to do anything more than what we've already done to go to hell, because everybody sinned. However, when we're following the Lord and the accountability that comes with following the Lord, we're called to learn and grow so we can more faithfully please the Lord and serve Him and grow. And so what are some steps that can help somebody with replacing like this I don't know mentality, or I don't understand the Bible or something, so I can't really read it on my own or whatever? What are some things that can help us grow in that? And maybe for you, listener, that's one of the reasons you choose to listen to this podcast, is you're like, hey, I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to grow. Let me just say that that's a great thing, and to keep doing that. I think one of the things that obviously that you can do is listen to things like the podcast or get involved in some Bible study groups. What are your thoughts, Jake, on that?
Sorry. Yeah, I think one of the things that I think we don't do enough of, or I know that I haven't, but is a great thing, is just going to people who are more mature, a lot of times older than you are.
I've been waiting for you to come to me with some stuff.
I know. Yeah, you're like, I've been noticing all these things. I got a list. But I think, especially for new believers, but really for all of us, like, that's why the church is so important, because we have a community of people who, there's always somebody ahead of us who may have gone through something that we're currently going through, has matured in their faith beyond what we are, and can help us in that. And so, like, if you're a new believer, like, a lot of times it's hard for us as people because it feels like we're admitting that we're less than, or that we're incapable of figuring it out or whatever. If that's you and you're hesitant, like, just know that that's what's supposed to happen. Like, having other people help you is what God has intended and what he's designed to help us. And so, please feel free to come and ask us any question. Go to people in your life that are more mature, that can help you. Don't just say, I got to figure it out, because people think that I'm not doing something I'm supposed to do or whatever.
When I think about the purpose of the church and why we're here, that's why we're here, is to help each other. And, I'm the senior pastor here, but I realize, like, that's a calling on my life. Not everybody has that calling, but there are people in our church who have been believers longer than I've been alive. And there are people in our church who are very spiritually mature, and those people are great people for guys like us even to talk to, like to glean from and stuff. We all have different roles within the church, and obviously certain roles in leadership should have different spiritual maturities. But for all of us, like, we're here to help each other, and we're here to learn and grow from each other. And so no matter where we are as far as our spiritual journey, I would hope that we want to learn more, and that's why we're here. But even more than that, we don't want to be like the servant who's negligent and just saying, okay, I'm going to learn more, but then do nothing with it. We need to take what we learn and start putting it into action and living it out in our lives. So with you, as you're thinking about your life, maybe as you think about this, you say, hey, I'm this servant, or maybe you can kind of see yourself in a couple of different ones. The purpose of this is to just inspect where we are and realize that the Lord wants us to be that faithful, obedient servant, the one that is doing his job well. And as you think about your life, I think for all of us, we have to ask ourselves, what would it look like to do our job better for the Lord, to do the things that he's called us to do, and to live that out each day, to please him and not ourselves. We would love to help you do that. We would love to help you better connect with the Lord here at Beacon Hill. If you don't have a church home, we meet at 9:15 for groups on Sunday mornings, 10:30 for worship. Love to have you come and be a part. And, hey, let me just say, if you come to church, and if you want, I can let you try some of the pickle bologna as well. How about that? That'd be a first timer's gift.
I'll tell you what, people.
How about a better gift is I don't make them try it.
Yeah. Be flooding through the doors, man.
And I promise, before you come this Sunday, we'll brush our teeth.
Mm-hmm.
So that won't be an issue.
Yeah, no
either.
vinegar.
Yeah.
It'll be all good.
Hey, you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.